Jenny, you're on mute.
Sorry, y'all. Welcome. Good morning. And we'll get started in just a few moments. We are trying to just work out some kinks with interpretation. So if you can humor me and put your name, organization, and where you are joining from in the chat, be much appreciated. I'm looking forward to seeing who all we've got with us this morning. And on our Exie, if you can let folks know as well in Spanish.
Yes, claro que sí. Buenos días a todos. Estamos aquí eh, terminando de hacer unas cositas antes de empezar. Empezaremos ya en un momento. Si pueden, por favor, poner su nombre en el chat y también la organización con la que están ahorita, de donde nos visitan, donde vives, y pues estamos muy alegres de estar aquí con ustedes y empezaremos en un momento. Gracias.
Awesome. Glad to see some partners that I've met with, partners that Kobe has met with, and hopefully some more partners that we'll get to meet one-on-one after this.
Estamos muy alegres de que vemos aquí unos compas con los que hemos trabajado y están presentes. Nos alegra mucho ver que es aquí. Jenny, I just want to let you know real quick, the meeting was rescheduled, and maybe because of the different link, that's why things are not getting assigned like they were. But we could always do consecutive, which is you speak and then we speak, and we could do the best we can with that. Lo que podemos hacer, Jenny, es hacer interpretación consecutiva porque no se está pudiendo activar en este momento.
Okay, that works for me. So we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, I'm Jenny. I am the North Carolina coordinator for VoteRiders. And I'm gonna turn it back to the interpreters to translate.
Buenos días, soy Jenny, soy una de las organizadoras de VoteRiders y pues estamos ya empezando oficialmente. Go ahead.
And I am based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm gonna pass it to my colleague Kobe in just a moment.
Yo estoy visitándoles desde Raleigh, North Carolina, y se lo voy a pasar aquí a mi compa Kobe Wright para que empiece.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kobe Wright. I am the North Carolina organizer for VoteRiders. I'm currently based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm grateful that you guys are able to join us this morning.
Hola, soy Kobe, estoy también aquí en North Carolina y I'm sorry, you said you're based where?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Estoy en Charlotte, North Carolina y estoy muy alegre de estar aquí.
And we're about to get started with sharing some information about voter ID broadly and in North Carolina. But first, I want to let y'all know, please hold your questions for the end or submit them through the Q&A. We are going to turn off the chat function during the presentation just so I can better focus and so that Kobe can better focus.
Y lo que vamos a estar haciendo hoy es vamos a dar información sobre la votación y la identificación y más que nada en general, pero también aquí en Carolina del Norte. Por favor, hagan sus preguntas en el chat o ya hasta el final, que va a ser cuando las vamos a platicar, eh, para, por favor, darnos espacio para yo poderme concentrar y también mi colega.
All right, so let's get started. Today we're going to talk about what you need to know about voter ID laws in general, as well as the specific requirement in North Carolina and what we can do to make sure voters can cast a ballot that counts.
Y bueno, lo que vamos a ver hoy son la identificación que se necesita, la identificación electoral en Carolina del Norte para saber qué es lo que necesitas tener y qué es lo que tienes que hacer para poder hacer un voto electoral limpio.
First, a little bit about VoteRiders. We work nationwide and year-round every year, not just in major election years. We work with eligible voters who don't have IDs.
Un poquito sobre nosotros, estamos trabajando todos los años, no solamente en años de elección, y lo que hacemos es ayudar a la gente que no tiene identificación electoral para que consigan una.
We will help voters get any ID they need, and we deliver accurate information about voter ID rules to communities across the country.
Nos aseguramos de dar información buena y acertada con toda la gente que tenemos y ayudamos a que la gente pueda procurar sus identificaciones electorales.
We were founded in 2012 as a response to an increase in voter ID laws across the country, and we work to provide clear information and direct help to all voters. We are nonpartisan, so we're committed to ensuring that every eligible American is able to exercise their freedom and right to vote.
Fuimos establecidos en el 2012 cuando vimos un incremento de leyes contra las votaciones, la identificación electoral, y lo que ayudamos es dar información clara, a reaccionar a la gente. No somos bipartisanos y lo único que queremos hacer es ayudar a la gente a ejercer su derecho de votar.
Part of the way that we reach voters is through partners. And so that is where you come in. We work closely with a diverse range of partners to ensure we reach groups most affected by voter ID laws.
Más que nada, alcanzamos a los votadores con nuestros socios, que ahí es donde son ustedes, ¿verdad? Tenemos un gran rango de socios para asegurarnos que podemos llegar a esos grupos que son más afectados por las leyes de identificación.
And when we say diverse range of partners, we do mean in terms of demographics, but also missions. We work with democracy-focused partners, but also shelters for the unhoused and job training programs, as well as other direct service providers.
Cuando nos referimos a un rango muy grande de socios, no nos referimos solamente a demografía, porque eso sí tiene que ver, pero también estamos hablando de que tienen un rango grande en misión. Varios de nuestros socios son albergues, también tienen programas de capacitación para entrar al espacio laboral.
Since 2012, we've worked with over 1,500 partners and counting to collectively reach millions of voters.
Desde el 2012 hemos trabajado con más de 1,500 socios y más para, entre todos, llegar a millones, alcanzar a millones de gente que vota.
And our partners serve as trusted messengers in their communities and deliver crucial ID information and connect voters to free help through your existing networks and programs.
Nuestros socios actúan, ¿verdad?, como mensajeros confiados y que dan mensajes o información eh, crucial sobre la identificación y también dan ayuda gratis a la gente que vota con sus redes, ¿verdad?, que ya existen y con sus programas que ya están tocando comunidades.
Together, we'll provide the resources to voters and offer a pathway to getting the documents they need. Those documents will allow them to vote, but it will also assist them with many other aspects of their life, such as job, employment verification, and housing.
Juntos vamos a proveer recursos a la gente que vota y también ofrecerles un camino para llegar a que pidan los documentos que necesitan. Estos documentos los van a dejar que voten, pero también los van a asistir con otros aspectos de su vida, por ejemplo, con la verificación laboral o hasta con vivienda.
Now we'll get into voter ID laws and their potential impact on the 2024 elections at a national level. So barriers to the ballot are growing. We see this in a lot of changes in the law in North Carolina, but also specifically voter ID broadly across the country. Anna, Exie, did I lose you? Let's see. Can y'all hear me?
Jenny, I think the interpretation has started.
Okay, great. Sorry, y'all. I can't see the chat while I'm in presenter mode. So barriers to the ballot, as I said, are growing. We saw this in North Carolina. The voter ID landscape specifically has changed dramatically since the last presidential election. From 2021 to 2023, we saw an unprecedented explosion of voter ID laws. Millions of voters could be directly disenfranchised because they lack ID, and that harm falls unequally on marginalized communities who are already underrepresented in our electorate. Complicated and changing ID requirements worsen voter confusion, which is one other aspect of the disenfranchisement that these laws create. We partnered with PublicWise, the Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement at the University of Maryland, and the Brennan Center for Justice to fund an updated study in 2023 and find out who lacks ID in America today. So for my data nerds, this survey is a representative sample of the US adult citizen population. It was a sample size of 2,386 respondents, including prepaid cell phone numbers, over samples of 18 to 24-year-olds, Black respondents, Hispanic respondents, Black and Hispanic 18 to 24-year-olds, and respondents with less than $30,000 per year in income. And our population count estimates are based on data from the US Census. And the US Census uses the term Hispanic in their data collection, which is why we use it here. We found that 14.8% of voting age citizens in the United States do not have an unexpired driver's license or state ID that has their current name and address on it. That is more than 34.5 million people, and we use the driver's license or state ID because those are two forms of ID that are accepted in any state with a voter ID law. A voter in that state can use that state's driver's license or state ID 100% of the time, as long as it's unexpired and has their current name and address.
Jenny, can you please make the announcement? The interpretation is now live, so people can choose their channel.
Okay. The interpretation is, now live. And so you can look and see kind of globe at the bottom of your screen, and please choose your channel. If you prefer to listen in English, you do need to select that channel. Thank you.
I'll also say it in Spanish. La interpretación ya está en vivo. Si quiere usar esa función, por favor, busque el globito que está abajo, y cuando le hace clic, usted ahí puede seleccionar qué canal quiere usar, ya sea inglés, español, y luego usted va a poder oír la presentación en el idioma que usted prefiera. Otra vez es abajo. Hay un globito donde tiene que hacerle clic, y luego ahí puede seleccionar español, Spanish, y de ahí usted va a poder oír la presentación completamente en el idioma que usted seleccione.
Thanks, Selena. And so among those folks who do not have a driver's license or ID, a current one, there is an unequal impact. And so we see that Americans who are disproportionately less likely to have a current driver's license include Black Americans, Latina Americans, Americans who do not have a high school diploma or college degree, Americans with lower annual incomes, and specifically young Black Americans are the least likely to have a driver's license with their current name and or address. Only 23% of Black Americans age 18 to 29 have a driver's license with their current name and address. 30% do not have any driver's license, and another 47% do not have a driver's license, or do have a driver's license, but it does not have their current name and or address, and so they may encounter issues at the polls. Another aspect of the survey was to look at barriers to ID access, and we found that 19% of respondents without a driver's license identified bureaucratic or economic factors as the reason they don't have one. So they identified barriers such as the cost of getting a license, financial or legal difficulties like unpaid tickets or fines, lack of time to get to the ID office, or lack of underlying documents. And those are typically birth certificates or social security cards. So 2 out of every 10 Americans living in voter ID states do not have a current driver's license. And again, we use the driver's license and ID as the example because they are accepted in every state with this law, and driver's licenses are more common than a state-issued regular ID. There is widespread confusion. That was another aspect of the survey. We wanted to know what folks did or did not know about their state's voter ID law. And more than half of the Americans living in states where a photo ID is required to vote in person don't know their state's voter ID law, and they're not aware of the specific type of ID they'll need to successfully cast a ballot. Many Americans living where photo ID isn't required are also confused about their state's voter ID law. And we saw that whenever North Carolina did not have this law in effect, the hotline for North Carolina's election protection still got a lot of calls about voter ID and voters being unsure what they needed. This is a map that just visualizes the growing number of voter ID laws since 2021. So the states in blue and orange, all of those states have a voter ID law in effect. Of those, the blue had a law before 2021, and the orange states have a new or stricter law since 2021. Those states in white are the states that do not have a voter ID requirement. So the 17 states in orange have new or stricter voter ID laws since 2020. And these laws do impact both in-person and absentee or vote by mail voting. And that figure, again, from the very beginning of talking about the study, is that 34.5 million voting age citizens do not have a current driver's license or state ID. And so that was kind of an overview of voter ID laws, their prevalence, and what we know about who doesn't have ID and the reasons why, as well as voter confusion. Now we're going to talk about North Carolina specific voter ID law, what you need to know about it to prepare voters. These are the list of accepted photo IDs in North Carolina. These can be expired for up to 1 year. So if you're talking to voters now and their ID is unexpired right now, they are good to go for the election in November. And if a voter is older than 65, that they can use an expired license as long as it was unexpired on their 65th birthday. So the forms of ID that are accepted are a North Carolina driver's license, a North Carolina state ID card, a U.S. passport or passport card, a voter ID card that's issued by the North Carolina County Board of Elections, a student ID or school or government employee ID that have been approved by the NC State Board of Elections. And you can see a list of those approved IDs at the link at the bottom of the slide. That's just a redirect. It will take you to the State Board of Elections website where they have that list up to date. And there are a few forms of ID that do not require an expiration date. Those include tribal enrollment cards issued by a tribe that's recognized by the state or U.S. government. And we are working with partners at 7 Directions of Service to produce a flyer that will assist Indigenous voters in knowing whether their tribal enrollment card will be accepted. A U.S. military ID will also be accepted, and a veteran
Jenny?
Experiencing some technical difficulties. I think that Jenny's speaker may have went out. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we cannot hear Jenny though.
Okay, so I will try to pick up where Jenny was left off. Let's see. So she was going over the North Carolina accepted photo IDs. So those with no expiration date required are the tribal enrollment card issued by the tribe recognized by the state or the U.S. government. We also have the U.S. military ID as well as a veteran's ID issued by the VA.
Kobe, if you'd like to continue the presentation for now.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I don't see where I'm able to share my screen. So if you could just share your screen for me, that would be great. So, and I can't see the full copy of the screen. So Lenny, could you share your screen for me, please?
Yes, in the process of doing that. Are you all able to see the screen?
I'm able to see it, but it's still cutting off.
Kobe, it seems like others are able to see the screen. If somebody who is attending can put in the Q&A if they do see the screen completely, so we can move forward with the presentation. Again, apologies for all these technical difficulties.
Okay, so there are different forms of ID accepted in the state of North Carolina. Voters who register in North Carolina within 90 days of an election may use an unexpired driver's license or a state ID card from another state. Voters must present a physical ID, so copies, images, or digital IDs will not be accepted at the polls. And also, the name on the ID must be the same or very similar to the voter's name in their registration record. The address on the ID, it does not necessarily need to match the one in the voter's current registration record. So we do have forms of free ID for North Carolina voters. There are currently two ways in the state of North Carolina to get a free ID. We do have a free state ID card from the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles. North Carolina residents that are aged 17 and older can get a currently free state issued ID, but you must provide documents to prove your identity, such as your name, your date of birth, social security number, and North Carolina residency. We also do have the option to get voters the free voter ID card from your county's Board of Elections. They currently offer, they issue free photo ID cards to voters who provide their name, date of birth, and the last four digits of their social security card. I mean, the social security number. So the North Carolina voter ID card, it actually expires 10 years after the initial issue. Now, a photo ID exception form in the state of North Carolina, all North Carolina voters will be allowed to vote with or without a photo ID. Voters who do not bring an accepted photo ID to the polls have two options. Option one being you can complete what is pictured to the left, an exception form, indicating the reason why they cannot show ID and vote with a provisional ballot. So option two is voting with the provisional ballot, when you can bring an accepted form of ID to their county's Board of Elections office before the ballots are officially counted. With provisional ballots, they must be properly completed and exception forms must be counted. Any North Carolina voter can request to vote by an absentee ballot. When requesting an absentee ballot, they can be requested online or by mail. Voters need to give their date of birth and one of these numbers: North Carolina driver's license number, the North Carolina state ID card number, or the last four digits of the social security number. A voter must include a copy of their accepted ID and completed photo ID exception form in the photo ID envelope that comes with their ballot. Absentee voters can complete an exception form if they do not have an accepted form of photo ID, or if they have an accepted photo ID but cannot make a copy of it. So here are some dates that are important for this year's general election. October the 11th is the voter registration deadline. Early voting begins in the state of North Carolina on October the 17th, which same-day registration is available on October the 17th. October the 29th, the absentee ballot request deadline, and on November the 2nd, early voting ends. November the 5th, of course, is Election Day, and all absentee ballots must be received by Election Day. There is no longer a grace period in the state of North Carolina, so any ballots that are received after November the 5th will not be counted. So voter ID in 2024, what you can do about it. Here at VoteRiders, we have numerous program areas: voter ID education, voter ID assistance, as well as communications and digital campaigns. We have voter ID state info pages. We provide 2024 updates prioritizing plain language and highlighting our recent rule changes across the state. We also have voter ID details for voting in person as well as by mail. We also provide a full list of accepted IDs and any alternative options for your state. So links to request ID help from VoteRiders, as well as ordering information cards and accessing your state's official website. And that is both in English and Spanish. So here you can bookmark your state page. Here you can bookmark your state page now. There's a QR code on the screen. So you can go ahead and either visit the link linked above, or you can scan the QR code. Now, our voter ID info cards. Our info cards are wallet-sized cards highlighting key voter ID info across our state. We do have all of our ID info cards in all of the 50 states and Washington, D.C. They are both available in English and Spanish, and they're free for nonprofit and nonpartisan organizations. We also have a digital version where you can download and print it, and these are very crucial backup for voters facing misinformed poll workers. This is just an example of what our currently our updated voter ID info cards look like in our state in North Carolina. And here it is in Spanish as well. So how to go about ordering info cards? Here at VoteRiders, we print and ship our info cards for free to nonprofit and nonpartisan organizations. All you would do is you can go on our voteriders.org/cards, and you can select your state or multiple states, and you can place an order. Orders typically take about 2 weeks to process and ship, and we cannot send any orders to PO boxes. So if you're not a nonprofit, you can download card files at voteriders.org/cards and print them locally. And here we have linked the order form for our ID info cards, and as well, the QR code is on the screen. We also host voter ID trainings and joint outreach. So for our voter ID trainings, we do have specialized training focused on specific state laws, as well as national training focused on best practices. And these trainings can be held either virtually or in person. And our joint outreach, we do provide co-branded materials for special events and special projects. And of course, we have virtual volunteer events. Direct voter contact partnerships. So partners leading our voter outreach efforts, they can incorporate our ID resources and free assistance offers into their digital or in-person programming. Pretty much the process is simple. You would ask about voter ID. The process is simple. You would ask about voter ID when contacting voters. You can share voter leads or data with VoteRiders. And we also can have trained volunteers to follow up with voters who need assistance. Staying on the topic of volunteer events, we do offer both virtual and in-person opportunities. We have letter writing, phone banking, as well as text banking. We often co-host these events with other partners to conduct a targeted voter outreach. Thousands of VoteRiders volunteers are working across the country, and we contact these voters year round, not only in election season, but year round to offer ID information and assistance. Now, here we have our voter ID helpline and our chatbot. There are numerous ways to get in contact with us. You can call or text us to our helpline. You also can email us, and you can also reach us on Facebook, Instagram, or website. So we have a numerous amount of ways for individuals needing ID assistance to get in contact with us. We know that there are many barriers that people face when it comes to getting an ID. So we've tried to eliminate several of those barriers, being eliminating the cost associated with getting voter IDs and getting ID documents, as well as transportation. We cover the cost of vital documents, and like I stated, we arrange transportation to ID issuing offices, such as your Social Security offices, as well as your DMVs. So we provide pro bono legal assistance also if that is necessary for assisting that voter get the document that they need. And the great thing about us ordering our documents and the different types of ID forms that we do, these documents are not only used for the purpose of voting, but they can be used for the purpose of housing and employment as well. We also have a strong on-the-ground presence. We do voter ID clinics, and they can be hosted in person or virtually. And at our voter ID clinics, we really want to make sure that we're doing one-on-one assistance with the voters. Sometimes we have to meet our voters and meet our community where they're at. So we do cover all costs associated again with the ID process, and our clinics can be scheduled on a recurring basis or as a single event. Virtual ID assistance is available at flexible times and days. There are a lot of options to refer voters to us for ID assistance. Partners can refer voters to us through a partner referral form. We also can refer partners. You also can refer voters to us through our helpline, as well as our free voter ID info cards. So we do have some ready-made sample language to share urgent voter ID information and calls to action, whether that be via email, our newsletters, and social media. So we do have specialized resources targeting certain communities. So please visit voteriders.org /pride or /student or /disabilities to find more information on these communities. And with that, I'd like to conclude our presentation. So I know that we had a lot of technical difficulties, so I really want to thank you guys for sticking around and really just sticking through it with us. And now I do want to open up the floor for any questions. So I do see a little bit of Q&A in the chat. Let's see. So I'm going through our chat. Will there be a record? So yes, there will be a recorded webinar available for the individuals to watch. I think that if I'm not mistaken, Selene, it will be sent out later today or either early tomorrow. Cynthia, I see that your question was, do many other states allow the additional IDs that North Carolina allows? Could you clarify? You can you can just come off of mute. If it does it allow you to come off of mute?
The chat has been enabled, so you can clarify in the chat if you'd like, Cynthia.
Sorry, y'all. My computer decided to completely disconnect from the Wi-Fi. And I'm not sure when that happened since I was in screen share. Selene, where did we leave off and what did I miss?
Okay, Cynthia, I see your question in the chat. So in North Carolina, we do allow driver's license, state IDs, and college IDs. I'm not really sure as to what the other states offer in terms of the variety of their voter ID laws, but the voter ID law does vary from state to state. So I really would have to check to really see that state-specific information because I don't want to, give you any misinformation. I hope that answers your question.
Can you hear me, Kobe?
Yes, Jenny, I can hear you.
Okay. Where did my Wi-Fi cut me off at?
Um, I believe it was very early on in the presentation, but I'm not sure as to what slide. But we picked it up and we have now opened the floor up for questions and any comments that any of our partners have.
Okay, thank you so much for covering that.
So again, we currently have the floor open for any questions that you guys may have. We've also put in the chat some links to provide it, the resources that we had shared with you guys. And I see another question. How many voters? So Jenny, there's a question in the chat. It's in the Q&A. Can you see that question?
I can. So this study was national, and as said, it's more estimates based on a representative sample. We didn't do a study specifically on North Carolina, and unfortunately, the Board of Elections has not released a list kind of cross-checking registered voters with DMV records to provide us with that information. What we do know is that during the primary, we can't count how many voters were necessarily discouraged, but we do know that there were voters who were provided with a provisional ballot whenever they should have been given a regular ballot, and that was due to poll worker confusion about whether their address had to match. There were also a lot of voters who voted provisionally and chose to return to the Board of Elections, or rather go to the Board of Elections because they probably didn't vote there. But those voters, for the most part, did not return to the Board of Elections to show ID, and so their ballot was not counted. So there is some data on that. I know Democracy NC produced a report that has more detailed information about that.
And Jenny, I'll let you wrap us up. I know that we are coming upon our hour. So again, I do want to thank you guys for bearing with us through our technical difficulties. And of course, just taking the time out to be with us today. So thank you guys again. And you can expect the recording to be to you, if not by the end of today, definitely early tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what Kobe said. Thank you so much for joining us, first of all, but then also for your patience with both us needing to reschedule due to my injury and then also with the technical difficulties today.
And I do want to clarify, the recording will actually be available by the end of this week.
All right, thanks so much, y'all, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have more questions. I'll put my email in the chat now.
Thank you guys.